It's finally a game day. After the Florida Panthers had have 4 days off of hockey, they now return to the ice tonight in game action. On today's episode, we're going to talk about some of the notes from Wednesday's Florida Panthers practice. We're also going to talk about the numbers in the month of February for this Cats team, as well as preview tonight's game against the Ottawa Senators. All on today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, March 3rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen today. I'm Armando Velez from PantherParkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. You can also follow the national show, Locked On NHL, and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark, who will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. And it's a game day. Yes. I'm so excited to be talking about a game now for this Florida Panthers team, as especially when they're in the middle of a losing streak currently. Couldn't be a better time for this Florida Panthers team to get a little bit of rest, but also kind of anticipate what's going to come for this team and see how they're going to come out of the gate as well after 4 days off and in the middle of a losing streak right now. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the Florida Panthers returning to practice on Wednesday at the Panthers ice stand in Coral Springs, and a little bit more of what we are likely to see out of Petteri Lindbohm, a player who the Florida Panthers signed from the who won a gold medal for Team Finland, who came overseas, had to sign, had to clear waivers, and then the Florida Panthers had to make a decision on whether he was going to be sent to the AHL or the NHL. And Andrew Brunette today during practice was asked what was going to happen for Petteri Lindbohm when he does eventually make his way to the United States. And Andrew Brunette talked about how he needs to go still through a little bit of immigration and go through all that before coming over here. But the plan is for Lindbohm is to be on the NHL roster. Now the question is, who is the guy odd man out on the D-corps for the Florida Panthers? Some might say Carlson, some might say Olli Juolevi. I'm going to guess at this point right now, because of playing time and opportunities, that it's going to be Olli Juolevi that's going to be the odd man out, because Lucas Carlson has had way more playing time than Olli Juolevi. I mean, Olli Juolevi hasn't been healthy all year. He went through a conditioning stint as well. But just the playing time and what Lucas Carlson has brought has been a little more impressive, in my opinion, than what Olli Juolevi has brought, even though I saw a little bit of flashes of pass breakups in the prior game that I saw of Juolevi playing. And the Andrew Brunette also spoke about why the sky isn't falling for this Florida Panthers team. And he went to explain his answer after giving the original answer. And the original answer was 3 words: body of work. With this 3-game losing streak out of 53 games, that's only less than 6% of your season. So the Florida Panthers going on the streak, I know that they've faced backup goaltenders. I know that they've had multiple 2-goal deficits in each game, but body of work, this team just does not forget how to play hockey all of a sudden. It just doesn't happen like that. This team is too skilled in order to forget how to play and to go on a extended losing streak. At least that's my opinion. We could be having a different conversation if they find a way to lose these next 2 games. Then we really have to start talking. Andrew Brunette did, in fact, talk about Petteri Lindbohm, about how he worked with him in St. Louis while he was there. Originally drafted by the St. Louis Blues, Andrew Brunette had a stop in St. Louis, so familiarity as well. And Andrew Brunette also talked about how he got to see a little bit of the Olympics and got to see an old player that he worked with. So familiarity with Andrew Brunette goes a long way in signing Petteri Lindbohm to a contract. And again, the goal is right now to put him in the club. It's still not going to move the needle for what the Florida Panthers are looking to do on their defensive core coming to the trade deadline. I still do think that they need to make some type of trade, but a depth piece doesn't hurt regardless of all that. And although the situation, like I talked about with Jacob Winans yesterday on Winans Wednesday about Petteri Lindbohm, the situation is not good. The elephant in the room is still there about bringing him over from Russia after everything that's happened in their invasion of the Ukraine. But hey, a depth piece for the Florida Panthers helps a little bit. Even it's like you're at a traffic light and a poor person wants a few coins for food. You give them a little bit, even 25 cents, it helps a little bit. And for Petteri Lindbohm coming over and a person who's been through some of the battles in the Olympics recently, it helps even a little bit, though it doesn't move the needle for this Florida Panthers team. So it's a good situation for the Florida Panthers to be in. Jonathan Huberdeau also spoke about the upcoming game against Ottawa, talking about how the Florida Panthers aren't really focused on the 8-2 loss the last time around and they also want to respect the other opponent regardless of record. He's also answered a question about how other teams are bringing in their A game every single time they face the Florida Panthers. So there is, in fact, once again, a target on their back. And Jonathan Huberdeau said, quote, "It's more about us," close quote, when it comes to the losing streak that they're on, how they need to get better. He talks about how they need to learn how to have fun again, and that they need to get back to just that. And of course, playing together and even sharing a laugh off the ice is going to go a long way with how you have fun on the ice. And also confirmed that Josiane Huberdeau, the sister of Jonathan Huberdeau, will be singing the national anthem for their game on Thursday night against Ottawa for what it's worth. So Anton Lundell also spoke to the media talking about how he played with Lindbohm in the IIHF Worlds just last year. So talked about how he's a funny guy, a big guy who moves the puck well, great two-way play, and they happened to be in communication with each other as soon as the signing was made and he cleared waivers. So a familiarity with a coach and a rookie sensation. We can call Anton Lundell a rookie sensation for this Florida Panthers team. So familiarity with those two, I believe it's going to really bring a very comfortable environment for Petteri Lindbohm, when he makes his way to the Florida Panthers. And I don't think he's going to play on Thursday against Ottawa. I feel that the earliest he could play is possibly Saturday against Detroit due to everything that's going on with immigration and custom enforcement. So if not, maybe we'll see him on the quick 2-game road trip at Buffalo and Pittsburgh starting on Monday and Tuesday. But in the next segment, we're going to break down some of the numbers that the Florida Panthers had in the month of February, comparing it to the rest of the season. But right now, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fire coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to your Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Second segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So, right when the Florida Panthers were having their 15 days off in between games, between their game against the New York Rangers the first day of February and their nationally televised game against the Carolina Hurricanes, I decided to do an episode of month-by-month breakdown of the Florida Panthers season. And I highly recommend everybody to go back and listen to that if you have the opportunity to, because I'm going to be doing this every single month that wraps up for the Panthers. And looking up the episode right now, it's on February 11th. That's when the when I posted that episode, if you want to go back to that date for the Panthers. But let's talk a little bit about some of the final numbers in the month of February. So the Florida Panthers, as far as record, 3-4-0 in the month of February, which is, by points percentage, their worst in the season. But for some context, isn't it better for the Panthers to have, for their worst record to come all season in a month, have to come on in a month that they don't play as many games with an Olympic break going on? So it's not a cause for worry. And also, for some context as well, over a third of the league had to play double-digit games as well. So the Panthers, it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, because numbers might be skewed a different way due to the not equal amount of games that the Florida Panthers had to play versus other teams have had to play. And once again, as far as luck, when it comes to the Florida Panthers, they've had their fair share of it. Once again, coming out of the Christmas break originally, and coming out of the Olympic break / All-Star break as well, where they started off with 3 road wins. Just the 3 recent home wins is just something we haven't seen out of the Panthers, and just maybe getting a little too comfortable on their home ice. So as far as goals for, 3.71. You take that most times if you're the Panthers. I mean, 3 goals, 3.71 goals. Most times you'll win games with that type of offensive production. 9th in the NHL in the month of February. But that was their worst month, believe it or not, in goals for throughout the season. Every single month, with the exception of February, they've been in the top 5. Goals against. This one is just not the good one here. 3.86. Good for or bad for, 28th in the NHL. So almost near the bottom of the NHL in this one. And that one is, in fact, their worst month as well. They've, as far as goals against per game, either they're in the 20s or inside the top 10 in each month this season. Once again, go back to the episode on February 11th to listen to month-by-month breakdown. But it's just a little bit of up and down when it comes to the defense and the goaltending as well for this Florida Panthers team. Power play percentage, 20.8%, good for 16th, which is about their season average, something that we expect out of this Florida Panthers team, really, at this point in time. Of course, we want it to all be better. We want it to be back to where it was in the month of January, when they were 4th in the NHL. I mean, in January, they sported a 12-2-1 record, and the power play was just on fire. But this one, the Florida Panthers kind of went a little bit back down to earth as far as the power play part of things. PK percentage, as far as that, 72%, good for 29th in the NHL. So PK is not as good as well. Just being in the box a little bit too much as well. And just with the Florida Panthers, that's also their worst month as far as PK percentage. I mean, started off hot in October, and every single month it's either in the teens, or with 2 months of the season, they've been in the 20s as well. Goaltending hasn't been impressive neither. I mean, even in the 3 wins, when the Florida Panthers started 3-0-0, and I guess maybe we could have saw that coming in a way, because even in the 3 wins, Sergei Bobrovsky was letting in some goals that maybe the Florida Panthers shouldn't have allowed. What helped with the Panthers is that they weren't allowing as many shots on their end. but there was some goals that you look back and say, Bob, maybe you should have gotten that one. And Bob had a 3-2-0 record, 877 save percentage, and a 3.08 goals against average. For Spencer Knight and Jonas Johansson, Spencer Knight started the very first game of the month of February against New York. The numbers, reading Spencer Knight's numbers wouldn't necessarily do it justice because they're skewed only with one game. Same thing with Johansson, but let's be honest. I think the Jonas Johansson's experiment, it's done after one game. After seeing what had happened in the one and only game that he got to start. Point production, Huberdeau still leads the way. Another month where he leads the way, continuing his case for the Hart Trophy. Just 2 points back right now of Connor McDavid. 1 goal, 11 assists for 12 points. Alexander Barkov, 4 goals and 7 assists. Aaron Ekblad, 4 goals and 5 assists. Aaron Ekblad, incredible month of February. Sam Reinhart, 7 points with 3 goals and 4 assists. And Anthony Duclair, 2 goals and 4 assists for the Cats in that one. So month of February, though it's not encouraging as far as the record, the Florida Panthers, they still had a little bit of bright spots in that month due to their ability to pick up road wins. And though they came a little bit back down to earth, again, like I said in the beginning of the show, body of work for this Florida Panthers team. I don't expect them to go on another extended losing streak at home, especially when you start 23-3. I mean, it's not something that I'm going to forecast of it continuing. And again, the Florida Panthers, when they do return home after this homestand, because they're going to go on a quick 2-game trip out in the Northeast. I mean, they'll be facing against the Flyers. I mean, the Flyers have challenged them both times in close games, but the Florida Panthers have been able to challenge them. And they have 2 home games at the end of the month against Montreal and Chicago. But this is a month coming up that they're going to play a majority of their games on the road. And their recent road success is encouraging. Just got to continue to create good habits as they take the show on the road, because they're going to have an extended road trip out in California and in Vegas. And they'll have a Canadian trip too in the northeastern part of Canada. And regardless of record, those are going to be hard places to play. And as of right now, things can change. You expect those Canadian markets right now to be at full capacity as well, or at least half capacity. And those are hostile environments that the Florida Panthers have to go into. And this is the month where the Florida Panthers finally face Toronto for the first time this season. And we've been talking a little bit here and there about the division. We've talked about Toronto, and this is the month that the Florida Panthers will be facing off against them for the first time this season. And that I got that circled. It's a Sunday, March 27th, an evening game, a Sunday night game. So that one is the one I'm really looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to seeing how they face off against Jack Eichel as he makes his return to the lineup. Seeing the progression of the LA Kings as well. I mean, the first game against LA, I mean, you could crumble that up and just throw it away after half the roster was out. So that was a hard one. And it felt like they didn't have a chance on that one. So that is what the month ahead is going to look like. But what matters is finishing out strong, and only a few home games this month. The majority of them are going to be on the road. And before you hit out on the road, I mean, it's extremely important to get some of these, especially since the Florida Panthers are losing a little bit of they lost the lead for the Atlantic Division. So you don't want to widen that gap for the Panthers as they try to win the division, and with only 1 matchup remaining against Tampa Bay Lightning and 3 against Toronto. So buckle up, Panther fans, because this is going to be a fight to the finish for sure. In the next segment, we're going to preview tonight's game against the Ottawa Senators as Brady Tkachuk and company will be making their visit over to Sunrise, Florida for the second time this season. So we'll talk about that next on Locked On Panthers. Continuing this conversation on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers will be bringing in the Ottawa Senators tonight at 7 p.m. at FLA Live Arena. So the Senators, they're rebuilding. The Pierre Dorian talked about how the rebuild is over, but it hasn't come to fruition for the Sens. But I mentioned it a few weeks ago, how the Senators have played spoiler against some of the top teams in the NHL, and they're doing it with their defense. And let's talk a little bit about their defense in just the last month, just the month of February. The Ottawa Senators, who are one of the teams that have had to play double-digit games due to cancellation due to COVID, and especially Canadian teams, have been hit the hardest with postponements. 2.42 goals against in the month of February, good for 7th in the NHL. However, they have a hard time scoring goals. 31st in the NHL in the month of February at 2.17. Power play percentage as well, 27%. PK percentage, average, just like the Panthers, as far as 82.4 in that one. Connor Brown's leading the way with 9 points. Brady Tkachuk with 8. Nick Holden with 7. And Timmy Stützle. And Timmy Stützle has a shooting percentage of 22.2 in the month of February. Not sustainable, but still an impressive month for Timmy Stützle, former 3rd overall pick from the 2020 draft, same draft as Anton Lundell. And they did lose 5-2 against the Tampa Bay Lightning just the other day. But it just goes to show how goalie wins are just stupid. And I'll tell you why. Matt Murray being placed on waivers. Matt Murray was thought to be a little bit of a scapegoat for what was going on in Ottawa this season, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. His numbers for the month of February, 943 save percentage, 2.11 goals against average. If you want to take a little bit of a pause and try to guess what Matt Murray's record is in the month of February, take a little bit of a pause and think about it. His record is 1-4-0 in the month of February. Just goes to show that goal support is just so important in this game. Just like pitchers, run support is important in the game of baseball, which I'm hoping baseball comes back, because even though the Marlins are awful, I still want to see them play. But, that's besides the point. But goal support is just very important for a goaltender. And sometimes you could just ask Thomas Vokoun during his time with the Florida Panthers. Had 7 shutouts in one season, but the Florida Panthers couldn't support him with goals when he was the goalie for the Panthers. Anton Forsberg as well, a 930 save percentage and a 2.42 goals against average in the month of February. But the goals aren't coming for the Ottawa Senators. So the Panthers have had a little bit of a tough time scoring lately, with their worst scoring month of the season. And the Panthers average defensively, really. I'm expecting this to be maybe a lower scoring game, maybe like a 2-1 or a 3-2 type of game. I think the Panthers will be ready. I don't think it's going to be 8-2, because let's also put some context in it. That was the beginning of their COVID outbreak. And even though Ryan Lomberg at that time was the only player to be placed on the COVID list, maybe the Panthers were a little bit slower in their step in that game, based on the players who had not yet tested positive, but might have already had it while playing. And it might have felt a little bit woozy or a little bit slow in their step, a little bit, I don't know. That's just a guess on my part, but that could also be a little bit of why that happened. And just with the Panthers, also, let's not forget that was a game that broke open mostly in the later part of the game. The Panthers and the Senators in that one, I believe 4 of the goals were scored in the final period. if my memory serves right. Yeah, looking at it right now, 4 goals were scored in the last period. So the Florida Panthers they still were in striking distance of the Senators right after the second period. But of course, the Senators just not even a minute in to the third period, they find a way to score and then break it open right then and there. And Spencer Knight's not taken out. There's rumor about Bob having some type of injury, and then that was the beginning of Spencer Knight being sent down. Has been pretty good during his time in the AHL. Not the best in his last start, but I've been really monitoring Spencer Knight ever since he's been back in the AHL. And Andrew Brunette talked a little bit about Spencer Knight being back at some time during the homestand, and we haven't seen anything. Are they waiting until the very last game of the homestand against Detroit to see whether Spencer Knight is going to start? I don't have the answer to that, but if that's what Andrew Brunette said, that he's going to bring him in sometime during the homestand, that is the only game that I could guess right now that he is going to be brought back to the lineup. So something to keep an eye on. And on Friday, we will be breaking down this game against the Ottawa Senators, and hopefully we will be talking about the Florida Panthers snapping their losing streak against Ottawa, talking about how the lessons that this Panthers team has learned from this time playing Ottawa and the last time. And we'll be also looking forward to the last game of homestand against the Detroit Red Wings and talking a little bit about that game. So Panthers hockey is back, 4 days off, and we finally have some hockey action to talk about. And I couldn't be excited to be bringing it to you guys here on this program. So in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast. You'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark will be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.